You know how sometimes life feels like it's just a bunch of random, disconnected events? Well, what if I told you that by looking backward, you could find a hidden blueprint, a coherent plan that was there the whole time? We're about to dive into a fascinating life operating system that was found, believe it or not, completely by accident. Okay, so our story kicks off right here, back in 1991, with this single photograph. It's a 24-year-old man named Ben Sim on a company trip in Malacca. And he's standing in front of this gate with a really interesting inscription, Sha Qian Men, which translates to Credit Money Gate. Now, at the time, it was just a photo, right? A random snapshot. But decades later, he'd realized this one image held the key to his entire philosophy on life. It's a pretty wild thought, isn't it? Could a forgotten photo, a random decision you made years ago, actually hold the secret code to who you were always meant to become? Well, for this one person, as we're about to see, the answer was a huge, resounding yes. To really understand the prophecy, though, we first have to appreciate the chaos it came out of. So let's take a look at what, for decades, seems like a completely random, unplanned path. I mean, just look at this. The variety is incredible. His work history literally jumps from semiconductors to aerospace, and then to property management. And his education, it completely zigzags from electrical power to facility management, and then decades later, all the way to artificial intelligence. On the surface, this looks like there was no plan at all. This timeline really just lays it all out, doesn't it? A 40-year journey with these huge gaps and really sharp turns. He gets an engineering diploma way back in '94, but then studies facility management almost 20 years later. And then after retiring from a decade in property management, at 58 years old, he goes back to school to study generative AI. So where's the logic in any of this? Well, this is where the story gets really interesting. After retiring, Ben started looking back, trying to make sense of it all. And he began this process that he would later call extracting certainty from randomness, a phrase he actually came up with using the help of an AI. And you know where that process led him? Right back here, to this photo. He suddenly realized that the name on the gate, Credit Money Gate, wasn't just some random name at all. It was actually a three-part prophecy for his entire life. Let's break it down. So the first character, sure, it means to get something on credit. And he had this amazing realization. That's exactly what he'd been doing his whole life. He was selling his time for 25 years in the workforce to buy his future freedom. He was paying for it all up front with his youth. The second character is Qian, which is pretty straightforward. It just means money. Now, for that young guy in the photo, money was this vague, fuzzy idea. But over the next few decades, through a lot of trial and error, that fuzzy idea evolved into a very specific, very manageable, and crystal clear system for becoming financially independent. And finally, we have Men, the gate, the entry point. And this is incredible. The prophecy came true just 2 years after this photo was taken. In 1993, Ben walked through his very own money gate when he bought his first stock during the Singtel IPO. That was it. That was the start of his entire journey into investing. So that became his whole mantra, extracting certainty from randomness. He realized that all those jobs and all those courses that seemed so random were actually part of a long-term training program. They were teaching him the exact skills he needed to build a life of freedom. Nothing was a waste. Now, armed with this incredible insight, he didn't just stop there and think, oh, that's a cool realization. No way. He decided to formalize it, to actually build a personal operating system for his life. He wrote it all down in this personal guide, this white paper. He calls it his system for achieving freedom and exemption. And that's a key distinction. It's not just freedom from work. It's exemption from all the social and financial pressures that trap so many of us. So how does this thing actually work? Well, he breaks it down into 3 really logical parts. First up is the soul. That's the core beliefs, like the prophecy of the gate. Second, you've got the components. These are the specific, actionable things he does. And third, the indicators, the metrics he uses to know if the system is running the way it should be. Okay, so this is really the nuts and bolts of his system. It's got a few key parts. A 5.61% yield investment portfolio that's totally focused on Asia, treating his long chain of skills as a valuable asset, an incredibly lean budget of just 667 Singapore dollars a month, and a 15% cash buffer that just removes all the anxiety about what the market is doing. So that's the system. But what does it actually feel like to live it day to day? What are the real results? He calls this final chapter of his life on the East Coast. Let's just start with this number right here. This was his total monthly expense for a recent month, just a little over 667 Singapore dollars. Now, for most people, that sounds impossible for a retiree in a major city, but his system makes it totally possible. And there's no magic trick to his budget. You can see the biggest slice of his spending goes to groceries. The key is actually super simple. He makes 3 meals a day at home and almost never eats out. It's a disciplined, low-consumption lifestyle that he has chosen. And that phrase, the East Coast, it's not just about a location. It's this powerful metaphor for his entire investment philosophy. I mean, why chase trends in markets you don't really understand? He invests in Asia, in the East, the place where the sun rises. It's the region he knows, it's where he lives, and it's where he sees a new beginning. It's such a clear contrast in approach, right? Instead of chasing hotspots in this vast, unknown global ocean, he's just standing on his own familiar coast. Here, the risks are clear, they're controllable, and it's all based on a lifetime of actually understanding the local economy. And just like that, the journey comes full circle. From the 24-year-old who unknowingly stood in front of a prophecy to the 58-year-old who has totally fulfilled it. He's now a lifelong learner studying AI, not because he needs a job, but just for the pure joy of learning. That random path has finally led to a place of absolute certainty. His own words just capture the peace of mind his system gives him perfectly. I know where my money is, I know why it is there, and I know how it will come back. I mean, that is the very definition of financial and mental freedom. Which really just leaves us with one last question. For you, take a look back at your own path, at the strange detours, the weird jobs, the forgotten photos. What seemingly random moments might just hold the secret code to your own operating system?